Hello guys, so we are now in Amsterdam at NIA conference and we are here with co-founder of NIA, Layer 1 Scaling Solution, Ilia Polosukhin. Nice to meet you here, Ilya.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for inviting.
Can you tell us how did you get into crypto and blockchain world?
Well, so originally we were building an AI startup and we were building a crowdsourcing system that required paying people around the world. And we found that to be a very complex problem that kind of in traditional world is not very solved as of yet still. And so we started looking at crypto as a way to solve how do we pay people, right? And we had people everywhere, like from China to Ukraine, from Poland to Cuba. And the answer was, well, yeah, there are Bitcoin and Ethereum, which you can use, but then you can they're only usable if you pay a lot of money, which we were doing microtransactions and kind of paying maybe like $1 to the people. And so kind of digging in, the understanding was that there's not much kind of scalability and design to kind of built for the users that went in most of the blockchain designs. And so this is how we really started kind of, well, if we have this problem, then everybody has this problem. So let's actually try to solve this.
So which year did you start NIA? And I guess there were already some other layer ones
there were
in development.
Yes, so we started in like kind of formally August 2018. So yeah, there was a plenty of kind of things either in development or launched, but we have not found anything that would actually satisfy kind of our requirements. And so for us, the kind of really important is that it's simple to use, it's secure, meaning both cryptographically as well as kind of on the user side, and it's actually scalable, meaning sharded and is able to kind of scale with the usage, right, to billions of users.
And how is NIA different from other layer ones like Solana, Avalanche? How do you achieve that scalability and security?
So the main difference that NIA has is so-called sharding. This is the idea that right now most of the networks, including the ones named, are running on one computer, right? They are replicated, right? There's a lot of computers verifying, but at the end it's kind of the capacity of one computer. And so obviously the world does not run like that. Most of the apps that are right now in use, right, that are in your app have whole data centers of kind of parallel processing happening. And so sharding is the design to do that. Obviously in blockchain there's a lot of different kind of complexities that come out, but in general this is kind of the approach to scalability. Like everything else is just kind of maximizing the capacity of a single computer.
And now we see quite a rapid development of NIA ecosystem, and as well recently you announced your latest round of $350 million led by Tiger Global and as well by FTX Ventures, Dragonfly Capital. And now we see that even institutionals are getting into investments into crypto companies. So how do you see the sentiment?
So I think in general, crypto has moved from, people playing in the garage and coming to hackathons to really kind of, I would say, traditional finance understanding that this will be for many pieces kind of a new or replacing existing infrastructure. And so, and even beyond that, right, if we're talking about like Web2 companies, like Sweatcoin being one of them, who have, tens to like hundreds of millions of users, they're understanding that this is where kind of their next generation will be. So I think overall, from a sentiment perspective, right, everyone understands it. Not everyone knows yet what to do, right? But I think obviously people who are on the forefront are either investing or already building something in this with these technologies.
And can you share some more about NIA ecosystem? And you have quite a generous incentive program of $800 million grants. Can you tell more in which types of companies do you invest?
For sure, yeah. So we have kind of 800, like a global ecosystem fund. It's actually split between different buckets. There is a kind of a DeFi focused, which is managed by Proximity, which is one of the kind of DeFi product labs in the NIA ecosystem. There's a grants kind of platform that near.org/grants that NIA Foundation is doing. And then beyond that, because we believe in decentralization and in scalability through sharding, we actually have a lot of different so-called shards, regional hubs, which are kind of independently operating funding projects, helping building new projects, right? So we have Asia, we have we had a Ukraine team who is now in Lisbon, Balkans, Kenya, and more are starting, right? And so through that, kind of by starting out as more local hubs, which are able to attract local talent, build their own projects, work with governments and kind of existing Web2 companies in that space. They also funding, like they have their funds itself that they're able to deploy to attract kind of companies, and in general, they run events and kind of marketing. So through that, kind of approaching the same as on technology side, right? How do we split and kind of do things in parallel? Similarly, approaching it on a community building, on ecosystem building side.
And what are the best examples of use cases built on NIA protocol?
So I think it kind of ranges. There's obviously a lot of DeFi, as probably in any ecosystem right now that's happening. But the kind of more interesting things, one is we've had a pretty successful run with DAO technology, like kind of digital cooperatives called AstroDAO. It has, I think, over 350 DAOs right now. Actually, the Ukrainian kind of humanitarian fund that I've helped start is running using that technology as well. So it's able to kind of collect funds and distribute them to people in need, as well as, kind of few other pretty big projects on your ecosystem are using this. So it's been kind of a really good locus of kind of governance and kind of ecosystem development. And then I would say one of the recently announced Sweatcoin that I mentioned is interesting because it's an existing app with 60 million users who came to near kind of onboarding their users and allowing them to kind of onboard into crypto through pretty much, the more you move, the more crypto you get. And so that kind of allows to have pretty much a massive amount of users coming in who may not be crypto native, right? They don't really know how all this works, but they have a little bit of crypto from their movement. They have a wallet and they're able to start exploring ecosystem. And so we'll see kind of through that then flowing into games, into kind of other applications like social, to really power kind of this economy, the creator economy that we're building.
Yeah, and we are both from Ukraine, and you mentioned that you cooperate with Unchained Fund, and you are one of the multi-signatures. So can you tell us more about activities of Unchained Fund? And I know you raised more than $9,900,000 already, and the majority is in NIA donations, over $5 million. So can you tell us more, how does it work?
Yeah, so originally Unchained Fund started with this understanding that there's a lot of people on the ground who are trying to help and they may not have funds. And so like initially, like first few days, there was a lot of like people asking to like, hey, can you send me some money? And then I'm trying to buy something, and then, hey, can we pay for something in crypto? So it was kind of a very messy process. And at the same time, like a lot of people from the West who were like texting saying like, hey, we want to help, like how can we help? And so I've put together actually a Google Doc, which I was sharing with everyone, which is like ways to donate, different organizations with different, like who they help and why, right? And so Unchained Rev, who's here actually, and a few other folks kind of pulled me in as well when they were starting to like, hey, how do we like do this? Like, let's collect funds, let's help these volunteers in kind of more like from one place. So that's really how it started. We built like a platform to help to fund volunteers to do a bunch of stuff. But now as kind of the, I would say, initial chaos peak kind of, and we're going into a more kind of, I would say, sustained, although obviously conflict is still happening, mode, the idea is to actually buy bulk amounts of medicine, of food, of clothes, of like generators, and then deliver this to the local centers. So working with mayors, working with kind of local territorial defense, with kind of local organizations, and then gathering large bulk requests and buying this from the West. As well as Unchained has launched an Unchained Help Card, which is actually for women with children to receive kind of a weekly funding that they can spend on whatever they need. And so kind of distributing that. So really creating like UBI style product for people who are really being affected by the war. And so this is kind of few programs that they're running. I mean, obviously Unchained is still asking for more funds and attracting. I mean, there's a lot of people who've been affected by this. So please donate as much as you can. And yeah, we'll kind of, I think, continue iterating and seeing what those ways can help with the resources that we have.
And talking about crypto adoption in Ukraine, what sentiment do you see when you make the donations in crypto? Either volunteers and these organizations convert back to fiat, or do they spend crypto?
So I think it's been a combination. I think it's definitely went from, people mostly wanting fiat to kind of starting more and more accepting crypto and transacting in crypto. I think the digital transformation, Bernyakov mentioned that like over 40% of their suppliers actually are willing to accept crypto. And like we see similar, like willing to accept crypto, but maybe like with 2% kind of higher price, for example. And so the reality is, I think more and more people are kind of moving into this, and in Ukraine especially, because well, it's unclear if your digital funds are continue working, right? Like nobody's sure that the specific bank will not go out of business, get like sanctioned, or just continue like stop existing because of a bomb. Like actually using crypto is safer, and so as well as allows you to have more flexibility. So I think generally it's been kind of moving pretty quickly into this. I think there's a huge demand actually on crypto in Ukraine. Like the USDT costs like 15% over sometimes if you try to convert from fiat. So generally, like I think huge demand, huge desire. We kind of need to help as much as possible to continue doing this. And the benefit is Ukraine actually passed the laws to legalize crypto, and right now it's still no taxation laws, which are in progress. So there's a really good time for everyone in Ukraine to kind of get in deeper into this.
So do you think this law was adopted at this time because of the war, or?
So this law was in works for 2 years. So like I actually know people who worked on it for a long time. So this is not a new thing. It was passed kind of through the Ukrainian Congress before, and so kind of I think the signature by president might have been symbolic, given the government actually raised, I don't know, like 100 million or something in crypto. But overall, like this is something that's been happening and would have happened anyway. Like if war didn't happen, this was in progress, and like kind of there's a lot of interest on Ukrainian government to kind of create a very attractive place for crypto entrepreneurs and crypto in general in Ukraine.
And generally, Unchained fund was started just before Ukrainian government started accepting itself crypto. And how do you see whether people are willing to donate more directly to government or to different organizations?
So we saw we saw both. I think the government, because explicitly government is helping the defense forces, which I mean obviously makes sense. Some people are not willing to donate for those causes, compared to for example, Unchained, which is specifically focused on humanitarian need and like people who are affected by the war individually, and so that I think is attractive for some people as well. And as well, at some point, it's kind of also like working directly with people as you fundraise as well. I think one of the important pieces for something like Unchained Fund is to get kind of sustainable income, right? So like maybe percentage of validator rewards, maybe kind of some percentage of revenue, things like that, which will allow to actually fund this, some of these programs kind of in future. Because even though hopefully war, Ukraine wins and war stops tomorrow, but the humanitarian crisis will continue for a long time.
And how is your family who is still in Ukraine?
Everyone's fine. Yeah, I mean it's definitely been a shocking set of events for them, but yeah, everyone's fine.
And how did the war influence NEA protocol's activity? You have the core team from Ukraine. Did they relocate just before the war or after?
Yeah, so some people relocated before. We had some people who we kind of like, especially women who moved out. There's like, it's not. I mean, the core team was very like core protocol developer team is very small in Ukraine, but there was a really big community of near Ukraine, which right now is now residing in Portugal. So some of them were outside. Women moved. Some folks are still in Ukraine working from there. So it's kind of been distributed, but yeah, a lot of near Ukraine community now is in Lisbon, and if you're in Lisbon, stop by. We have events there.
And Ukraine was already on the first place in terms of percentage of crypto adoption. More than 12% of Ukrainians hold crypto, and with the war, it's obviously accelerated the adoption of crypto. So how do you see this development of Ukraine. Will it become the next crypto hub?
I think so, yeah. I think there's a lot of interesting projects kind of discussed to also help recover from the war, and I think a lot of them will be funded and supported with crypto, with DAOs, with all this infrastructure. And so I think, yeah, Ukraine kind of as it settles down will be the place to go.
And do you think Ukraine will become a good place for registration of the companies?
So DSCD was actually launched before, and I think Revolut was the first one to come in. So in general, like DSCD is designed, including for crypto as well, to be the place to go for tech companies. And so, I mean, we'll see obviously how it all evolves, but I think yes.
And how do you see regulations worldwide in terms of crypto regulations, both in Ukraine, in the US, in Europe?
So I think regulators right now are trying to apply their kind of existing frameworks, and they're not always able to map directly kind of existing what's been existing to the kind of innovation of the space. So my belief is, as regulators and as a space ourselves, we should start kind of defining this from the first principles, which are protecting the user, protecting the investor, kind of making sure it's secure and like accessible, and is not a rug pull, is not a scam. Like how do we do that? And so what is the set of rules and products we should build to allow that, and then use that to work with regulators to kind of accept that as a framework. So in a way, like as a space, we should create a self-regulatory framework and then work with regulators to accept that. And this is actually a precedent from a lot of other industries who are very technological innovative, right? Like biomed and for example, airlines, where they themselves develop kind of regulatory frameworks that then they work with regulators to kind of, like overview and police them.
And do you cooperate somehow with regulators?
We're working with some of the kind of organizations in the space who are working with regulators and the governments. Yeah.
And in your opinion, what is needed for mass adoption of crypto? And in your bio in Twitter, it's written that NIA is on the mission to bring 1 billion users to Web3. So how are you gonna make it?
Simple, secure, scalable. Yeah, I mean, we really need to make it really simple to use, right? Like normal people who don't know how crypto works, what seed phrases are, what private keys are, should be able to use this. It should be secure, and not just like the protocol secure, which is true, but also as a user you should be able to not worry about like, hey, somebody stole my money, phishing, like all of those things that right now, scams, rug pulls, all the stuff that's happening. Like we should protect the user from this. And then scalable, right? It should be able to handle billion users actually doing stuff all the time, and the fees should not go through the roof. And so I think sustainable is true as well, kind of more for a long-term planet. But like this three is how we get users to actually start using and accepting this.
And do you believe that the future is multi-chain?
I believe there will be multiple chains, yes. And I think with some of the bridge tech and with some of the kind of UX improvements, we can actually get it to an experience that users are able to kind of freely operate with the apps without needing to think too much about the wallets and kind of how things like are working behind the scenes.
And currently NIA is like top 20 cryptocurrency and coin market cap. And how do you plan to bring more developers to your ecosystem to incentivize them to develop more projects on NIA?
So, I mean, generally our strategy is kind of combination of the funding, the regional hubs, which are working directly with kind of the folks on the ground, and developer experience, make it so easy for people to build that it's the onboarding is easy. They can start, they can get funding, they can get support locally, and they can work, right? So we have, like for example, for support perspective, we have twice a day, every work day, 8 office hours where you can join some of the developer relations folks from your ecosystem to ask questions, to ask how things work, to kind of get your questions answered. There's also like local one in Chinese for Russian-speaking countries, so in general, like there's ways to access kind of answers. There's easy developer tooling, funding. There will be more stuff for startups specifically that's coming. And so all in all, kind of creating this like ecosystem of support that anybody can come in and really quickly on ramp and build their next unicorn.
And how big is NIA team currently, and where do you plan to spend this $350 million which you received this investment?
So Near Foundation is one of the organizations. I don't actually know how big it is, 50, 60 people. Marik here, who is the CEO of Near Foundation, probably has a better idea. There's Pagoda, which is a kind of Web3 startup platform. There is, Aurora, there is Calimera, there is Octopus. There's a lot of projects. There's over 500 projects at this point in the ecosystem. So Near is, we are a lot. And so the funding is really to go into this regional hubs, into funding the partnerships, into funding the kind of infrastructure ecosystem development, right? So all in all, like kind of if you think of setting up 20 hubs with eco funds, setting up some of the core partnerships as well with Web2 companies, like all of that will require funds.
And can you share some future plans for development? Any exciting partnerships in line?
The future plans, I think, look forward for more, even easier development on Near. There's some really cool stuff coming. It's all on GitHub, so anybody who wants to go and find it. But there's really, really exciting for developers way to build that will unlock a lot more developer adoption. And then what I'm working on is a thing called Web3 Combinator, was mentioned a few slides already, which is really trying to create a more open kind of platform, as think of it as a DAO of accelerators, right? How do we bring kind of all projects and all accelerators in one place and allow them to kind of match and make, and at the same time offer all the self-service tools that I know startup founders need, because this is the same questions people are asking me, for example.
Okay, so we'll follow more success of Near. Thank you for interesting conversation.
Thank you.